Hello again, it's Ken Utley of Sims. During this video segment, we are going to be discussing Ademco's contact ID format and how data entry can go about getting the full potential of this format. Before we begin, I would like to provide a little history about this format. Ademco's contact ID format first appeared in the security market in the late 1980s as an improvement over the Ademco high-speed protocol. Using an event modifier, a 3-digit event code, and a 3-digit zone user number, this quickly allowed the contact ID format to be the desired format in the industry. The E and R modifier, along with the 3-digit event code, allowed the printing of an English interpretation for the actual zone on Ademco's 685 receiver to assist unautomated central stations to clearly understand what the signal was intended to identify. This English event code explanation, along with the zone user number, allowed operators to quickly respond to signals received even in the harshest conditions without the pulling of cards or data with the earlier formats. Let's take some time now and understand this format for all its versatility and functionality. In order to accomplish our demonstration here, I've taken the account Tequila Willies and placed the contact ID zone account number that's provided in your Sims demo in the zone account field. Also, we've gone to the zone page and cleared out all the zones that were in there before to assist with our explanation. I'd like to identify here first of all, the first character is this modifier code that we spoke about. It can either be an E or an R, followed by, in this case, code number 110, which is a fire alarm general. And then trailing up at the end, a 3-digit actual zone number or user number in the case of openings and closings. It is possible to have a burglary zone 1 and a fire alarm zone 1 under the contact ID format. So just knowing the last 3 digits of the zone number may not give you all the clarification and the functionality that you need. In this case, we'll know that we did the zone, and then I put in the message fire along with the zone description fire alarm, and under the restore all column an R110, which means the restore on this alarm for 001. Now, the one shortcoming to the contact ID format is the fact that it doesn't go beyond the modifiers E and R, which is alarm and restore all. There are no modifiers for cancels and bypasses and so forth like that. And as you get involved in this format, you're going to find other event code numbers that would appear to have nothing to do with the zone, like a 578 is a bypass event code. And it tends to move you off in a whole different direction. Now, if we come back here to the beginning, I'm also going to go to the next step. It's important for you to know that there are only 7 characters in the Sims 2 database for the zone. And although all was believed to be looked forward to back in the early 1990s, the fact that there was some modification done to the contact ID format. After it was released in the United States, and it started appearing and was endorsed and copied overseas, there was a subzone or a partition number that was utilized within this format. This was not identified early in the Ademco information and was really identified as a G00 through probably about 1992 or 93 in the United States. About that time, the overseas manufacturers of receivers and the capability of that format, they started using the G field instead of G00. It became G01, which identified area number 1, or G08 notifying area number 8. So we've had at some point to modify the way we've dealt with the contact ID format inside the Sims 2. And what we did was we removed the E and R, kept the 3-digit event modifier, filled in an area identifier, a single character area identifier, followed by the zone number. So in this case, we might put in the zone like this. Now, within your SIMS2, there are certain selections as far as the receivers go that will modify this contact ID format and pass along an event modifier instead of the ENR. This can be very useful in getting through this subzone or area identifier through the account, and was done quite differently than possibly you might have seen in the SIA formats. So if I wanted to take and redirect all, I'm going to remove this zone, and I wanted to redirect all Area 1 events to a completely different account, I might do it something like this. 3 question marks, a 1, 3 question marks. I can put anything in there I want and just say this is an Area 1 redirection. And then down in the petitioned account number, I can put a completely different account number in down there. I'll just move on down there for a second. If I were going to set this account up from scratch, the recommended SIMS way to deal with this is to, sorry, I went just a little bit far, is to put the number 97-01-0001. Now I'm going to get a no account number on file for this because I haven't put that account in there. But if I were redirecting, I might do it something like this. Now there are other ways to do this. We also have a lot of customers that utilize it. In the case, the Tequila Willie's number here is 01-01-0001. A lot of accounts will put in 01-01-00011. So that would take on the appearance of a 5-digit account number, but the last digit really being the area identifier. I'm going to erase that out of here right now just because it's going to make it a little easier without bringing up the error screens and so forth like that. Now, just so you know, if there were an Area 2, and this should be probably understood by now, I might do it something like this. Like that. Those numbers go 1 through 9 and then begin the letter A. So if I actually had an Area 10 coming in, and that would appear on your printer as a G10 for the Area 10, I might do it something like this. And follow along with my partition number, however it might happen to be. That would go now all the way, since there happen to be 26 letters in the alphabet, Area 36, and so forth like that. And if you actually follow your ASCII chart, you can even go up farther than that. Now, this kind of shows you the way to redirect these. Now, in order to get the full potential of the Contact ID account, we're going to need that ENR back because other things happen in the world marketplace that have a bearing on this. For example, if we go and look at the Contact ID zone account, we're going to have a DEMCO's identification for all the different zones, whether they're an E, some 3-digit event code, or an R, some 3-digit event code. Well, the fact of the matter is, panel manufacturers open up a portal in through the receivers, and they can really create whatever event code that they want. Event codes that possibly might not be in the Contact ID, or even event codes that are different from the Contact ID standard format. In some cases, we've seen that a restoral on event code 370 might be a 24-hour test, as opposed to the event code that is really set up for that particular type signal. This makes the flexibility almost work against us, because some of the panel manufacturers can interpret these signals or create signals way beyond what was actually ever intended, and thus really overriding all this English language capability of the event code. Let's go ahead and save this account. I'd like to take a minute then and go into the actual zone account so we can just get a good feel for all of the capabilities there. Now, before I get out of here, I should let you know the only thing that belongs in the base account, whether you're using sub-accounts or not, are only those zones that are different from the zone account. In other words, there are some 370 zones inside of the SIMS Contact ID zone account. We don't want you to recreate all those zones for every Contact ID format. So you're going to want to use that zone account field on page 1. And by utilizing that zone field, the only thing that you're probably going to identify inside of that base account is any redirections, just as we've specified, and also the individual zones that have some meaning for that account. For example, I might have an event code for a burglary, and zone maybe 011 might be an upstairs back bedroom. We're going to want to identify the zone description for that upstairs back bedroom so that we can help the police direct and help them understand, as well as the owners, what exactly is going on with their panel. Now, there are no modifications for the Contact ID format, certainly at this time, that allow the transmission of English language. So these event codes do have some purpose. There is a few other tricks that you can do. I'll bring one of them to your attention right now. All event codes that have anything to do with alarm conditions always are an E1. Fires happen to be, I believe it's event code 110 through looks like about 118. Panics go from 120 to 123. Burglaries from 130, so forth. Alarms from 140 and so forth like that. Supervisory start around 200. So if I put in E1 with a double question mark, I'm covered through that range. So if I know what the zone number is out in the field and I don't know what the event code is, I could do something like this, and perhaps this might even cover me there. So the question marks can give you the necessary flexibility if you don't know all of the ins and outs of the event code that this particular dealer or customer is going to be sending into you. And in the same case, though, I can come over here and I could do an R1 double question mark, 0 for a 1 for the restore, and I know that those are going to hold true. Now, the one thing that I want to do is when I'm in the zone that I want to go identify what the zone description is, I'm talking about after any redirections are necessary, I want to move over here to page 5, and there's a very important flag down here. It's called Restore ER. When I get to the end account, or where I really want that zone to be identified, I want to restore the E and the R back. It's necessary for me to remove that E and R as it comes into the system because I need that character for any redirections that are necessary. But after I've satisfied my redirections, I can answer yes to this flag, and it will take that area identifier out of there and put the E and R back in there, so I can overcome some of these situations I mentioned a moment ago where a test might be using an event code it was never intended for, and a restoral might be something that I need to do something other than just a general restoral, that it may have a meaning that has nothing to do with restore. This is the power of this format, but it's also one of the shortcomings of the format. Now, let's come back here to the zone page again just for a second. Now, I'm going to save this. I'd like to step over to the zone account just for a second, just so you can get a little idea about that. To do that, we'll just go into our test account. Now, you will see in the zone account that we provide, you'll see both the E100s and then the event code without the E and the R, but a question mark where the area identifier is located. That's because at the zone account level, I've got to capture or be in a position to capture both these types of signals, whether I've restored the ENR or not. And this is very important. Now, I think I mentioned earlier that the E100 start the medicals, the E110s start the fires. We can go through, now the panic started E120 and so forth like that. There are a few little special situations, like we can get all the way up to a 578. Notice our low batteries here and our low battery restorals. They could be put on the same line. Any E and R can be put on the same line. But just note, it could have a bearing on whether you can get the automatic removal off the traffic display, because some of these signals are bound by the mnemonics, and just an RST may not get it unless you've used some of the dealer capabilities with the alarms and the restorals and the removing it from automatically from the traffic display. That's covered on another video in what's new. At this time, it'll be broken out into other videos as time passes. But I'd like to move right on now and get all the way up to the bypasses. We got supervisories. We're going to pass by the opening closings, and notice there are lots of different types of opening closings. For these opening closings, you can cover most of those by going to the zone account. As a matter of fact, I guess what I'm saying is I would normally recommend you don't put any of the opening closings in the base account unless you want a certain user to have a specific effect, like override the schedules. You can get individual consultation from the SIMS personnel and support staff on individual situations like that. But I think it's fair to say that 90 to 95% of the time you really don't want to put any of these extra zones inside of the base account. Most of the time you're going to want to limit any event codes that are in the 100 to 199 range. Once you go outside of that range, for the most part, and no exceptions come to my mind right now, you're going to want those to go onto your zone account. But anyway, we were heading up for bypasses, which strikes me as if it's in the 500 range. Well, we have a 510 that's a system disable. I think we have a 5. Yeah, there we go. Here are the zone bypasses. These were this is probably one of the things that's a little bit harder to work with on the contact ID format, in that there is no bypass category or zone within the zone, so you could tile the zones together. As you can see there, you have the base zone, you have a restoral zone, and a cancel zone. It would be nice if there were a trouble in a bypass, and this is how the formats have evolved over the last several years. And you can look for an additional zones to come up. When those come up, it's going to be very, very helpful in the contact ID area when tying event codes that are completely different event codes back to the base zone, which would be in the 110 range. Okay, I think we've covered quite a bit on the contact ID format. I hope this has been informative. It should get you off the ground. If you want to bring in area information under the contact ID format, it's probably a good idea to consult with SIM support personnel to make sure that you get the right selection of a receiver. For example, if you have an ADEMCO 685, the ADEMCO 685/AUS is the format that brings in or drops the ENR, uses the event modifier, and brings in the area identifier. There are some others. Any of the ones that end in /AUS actually modify the contact ID format. There are 2 or 3 of those in there, probably Assure Guards, probably the ADEMCOs and so forth like that. But if you're in question, don't hesitate. Give the SIMS support personnel a call. And I hope this explanation has been helpful to you. Thank you.